Welcome back, and thank you for joining me today for our Lenten Daily Devotional. This is day 22. We continue on page 46 of A Story to Tell with a reading from the 8th chapter of Mark. And Mark writes this: Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and looking at his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." Our quote to ponder this morning comes from Dwight J. Chyla, The Agile Church. He writes this: "In God's promise and call, we find a new identity, an identity that frees us to be able to risk our very lives because we have a secure future. We don't know quite where we're going. God never promises that the path will be straight, direct, or easy. It leads us through the valley of the shadow of death, but as the psalmist says, we don't travel alone." Our reflective reading this morning is titled, "What We Know About the Future." Our plans are never 100% certain. What we strive to create or accomplish is easily undone by unexpected events and circumstances. Few of us had imagined a pandemic that would bring death and economic disruption on such a global scale. Plans have been changed, canceled, postponed, and completely undone by COVID-19. Peter had plans for Jesus the Messiah that did not include suffering and dying on a cross. Given all that Peter had seen Jesus accomplish, he couldn't imagine his remarkable ministry ending in such a way. Jesus, however, spoke with quiet confidence about rising again after 3 days. God did raise Jesus from the death and is at work still today to bring life out of death and hope out of despair. As we move forward each new day, Christ's loving presence will never leave us. The verse that stuck out to me this morning was that Jesus began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. As I started getting ready this morning, I realized that I did not have my daily devotional with me. I had left it in the worship space last night as Sean and I were recording the Wednesday evening Lenten service. In my rush to get back to a council meeting last night, I had left it behind. So this morning I go and I pick up my Lenten daily devotional in the sanctuary, and I was greeted by this stained glass window. In the image, I see Christ coming out of the tomb. 2 Roman soldiers, one standing in awe, the other one still sleeping. And it's in that image this morning that I saw God's promise that Christ brings life out of death. And that's the promise that we live in, and that reminded me of our quote from Dwight Chyla. Said, "In God's promise and call, we find a new identity, an identity that frees us to be able to risk our very lives because we have a secure future. We don't quite know where we're going. God never promises that the path will be straight or direct or easy, but it leads us through the valley of the shadow of death, and we're promised we never walk there alone." Sometimes following our call means that we have to let some things go. It may seem like we are letting some things die. When we say yes to following the one who goes before us, with us, and after us, we don't often know where that might lead. Sometimes it leads us to a new town or a new job or a new congregation. And these transitions sometimes mean that relationships change and priorities change to the point that they seem like some things are dying. Sometimes it means we get to let go of unhealthy habits and let them die as well. Habits that prohibit us from seeing our neighbors as beloved children of God. Habits that hinder us from sharing the good news through our thoughts, words, and deeds. Habits that hinder us from loving ourselves and loving our neighbors as God fully intended. The good news that I see in this stained glass window today is that through death, Jesus brings resurrection and life, life that is meant to be full of joy, meaning, and purpose. Resurrection that sets our lives free to go out and to change the world. Amen. Thank you for joining me again this morning for our Lenten Daily Devotionals. Please like, share, or comment. Maybe this morning we share some habits that we've let die in order to follow the call of God to love neighbor as ourselves. I hope to see you all back here again tomorrow. Have an awesome day.